Easy Explain, A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf, Chapter 6, the final chapter here, the big finale. Kicking things off with some gender studies coming out of Virginia Woolf here. Let's kick things off with her concept of man womanly and woman manly. So here Woolf explains that it is natural for the sexes to cooperate. One has a profound, if irrational, instinct in favor of the theory that the union of man and woman makes for the greatest satisfaction, the most complete happiness. There are two sexes in the mind corresponding to the two sexes in the body. They also require to be united in order to get complete satisfaction and happiness. In each of us, two powers preside, one male, one female. And in the man's brain, the man predominates over the woman, and in the woman's brain, the woman predominates over the man. And this is a long passage. I've broken it into two parts. Let's just keep going here. She continues by saying that the normal and comfortable state of being is that when the two live in harmony together, spiritually cooperating. If one is a man, still the woman part of the brain must have effect, and a woman also must have intercourse with the man in her. It is when this fusion takes place that the mind is fully fertilized and uses all of its faculties. Perhaps a mind that is purely masculine cannot create any more than a mind that is purely feminine. So here she's really looking at this almost like Taoist yin-yang sort of structure of how in all of us there's these two opposing forces of the masculine and the feminine kind of learning how to be together more harmoniously. And for Woolf, the full realization of this is that you're man womanly or woman manly, right? You're somewhere in between the two. And that is the one true, correct, best possible balance is really to find this harmonious union between the two. Let's go on. There's another long passage on this concept. So Woolf continues to say that it is fatal for anyone who writes to think of their sex. It is fatal to be a man or woman, pure and simple. One must be woman manly or man womanly. It is fatal for a woman to lay the least stress on any grievance, to plead even with justice any cause, in any way to speak consciously as a woman, and fatal is no figure of speech, for anything written with that conscious bias is doomed to death. It ceases to be fertilized. Again, it's a little longer, I split it into two, but let's just keep going. Brilliant and effective, powerful and masterly as it may appear for a day or two, it must wither at nightfall. It cannot grow in the minds of others. Some collaboration has to take place in the mind between the woman and the man. Again, that's the woman and the man in the mind, before the act of creation can be accomplished. Some marriage of opposites has to be consummated. The whole of the mind must lie wide open if we are to get the sense that the writer is communicating his or her experience with perfect fullness. There must be freedom and there must be peace. So pushing this concept a little bit farther, right, we're getting these terms now of man womanly and woman manly. For Woolf, the union between these two, the harmonious union between these two, is where the best possible outcomes of creativity lie, right? That's really where we want to try to get to. That's what we would try to work on, is unifying the masculine forces and the feminine forces in our minds, regardless of what our other outward gender and sexual identities may be, right? We need to kind of find some union for Woolf. Let's tie this into the big concept at large here, a room of one's own, a room of her own. This is, I think, at least the third time we're going to visit this concept. Woolf says that it is necessary to have 500 a year and a room with the lock on the door if you were to write fiction or poetry. Keep in mind, this is 500 a year back in 1929, so these days it'd be like $10,000 a year. We got to get a lock on that door. Got to be locked inside to be able to write fiction, write poetry, be creative, be yourself, work on this harmonious union between masculine and feminine energies. And what does it mean to be yourself, right? This is going to be a big theme here for Woolf coming down the final straight. Here Woolf says, so long as you write what you wish to write, that is all that matters. And whether it matters for ages or only for hours, nobody can say. But to sacrifice a hair of the head of your vision, a shade of its color, in deference to some headmaster with a silver pot in his hand or some professor with a measuring rod up his sleeve, is the most abject treachery and the sacrifice of wealth and chastity, which used to be said to be the greatest of human disasters, a mere flea bite in comparison, right? So you have to be yourself. If you're not yourself, if you're measuring yourself up to other standards, if you're not writing and creating what you want to be writing and creating, that's actually the greatest human disaster, right? That's quite a tragedy for Woolf. Another look at the concept of a room of one's own, a room of her own, but in stream of consciousness style, again, going back to Woolf's narrative style that she's very well known here for. Again, at a point in the stream of consciousness selection, she says that 500 a year stands for the power to contemplate. So now $10,000 a year, a power to contemplate. That a lock on the door means the power to think for oneself, right? So if you can lock yourself in a room for oneself, you can really lock others out, right? Be private. You have the power to think for yourself. right? That's where you really want to be. So this is the final occurrence I think we see of a room of her own, right? This concept. So let's bring it home here. Intellectual freedom depends upon material things. Poetry depends upon intellectual freedom. And women have always been poor, not for 200 years merely, but from the beginning of time. Women have had less intellectual freedom than the sons of Athenian slaves. Women, then, have not had a dog's chance of writing poetry. That is why I have laid so much stress on money, particularly $500 at the time, $10,000 now, and a room of one's own, more specifically with a lock on the inside. Lock those people out, get the power to think for yourself. So let's flip this. Let's look at you having a room of your own. Let's break the wall here. So that when I ask you to earn money and have a room of your own, I'm asking you to live in the presence of reality, an invigorating life, it would appear, whether one can impart it or not. And from there, the mic drop here, the importance of being yourself coming from Woolf. Virginia says that it's much more important to be oneself than anything else. Do not dream of influencing other people. Just be you no matter what may come from it. Do what you can to get to that point, get that money, get that room, write, create, be productive, be an individual, be yourself. That's the mic drop here at the end of chapter 6. It's the mic drop here at the end of A Room of One's Own. For now, hope this helps.